First, let me say it's great to be here. It's great to see so many friends that I've served with, so many commanders that I've worked for, General Everhart and General McNabb, Chief Fry and Chief Curver. Thank you so much for the invite. If we had about 2 or 3 hours, I would go through the crowd and name all of my battle buddies and teammates that are here. But instead of doing that, what I think I would do is I'll tell you, which I don't do that often, right? Kind of a tough guy. So, but what I'll do is I'll tell you how I feel right now. How I feel. I feel connected. I feel connected to Air Mobility Command, not just because I had 2.5 assignments. I say 1 is a half. The first time, my very first duty station at Pope, it started off as MAC, and then we teetered it a little bit into ACC and the first composite wing, and then another tour at Pope. and then my time as the command chief at McConnell. So I feel very connected to all of our AMC airmen, and I think that's important. I think that's important for all of us to be able to feel some level of connection to something that's much larger than we are. So I'm very excited to be here today. Again, I really like the way the boss lays out what it is that we do for our nation, because I always get to come behind him and remind you that we could do none of it. We could do none of it without our airmen. I see that you recognize the importance of the contributions that our airmen make, because if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not that great at public math, there was one, I can't remember where she is, but there was somebody who was a math major and a lot of stuff in math, so I'm not that good, but I think we recognize about 20 or so airmen today for their contributions throughout Air Mobility Command. What I like to do is just build upon that just a little bit and really help us further understand how our airmen, your airmen, really are our strategic advantage. And so I want to highlight just a few more people for you. This is Staff Sergeant Oliver Broadbent. Oliver is a loadmaster with the 22nd Airlift Squadron. Oliver wouldn't be proud of that, just to let you know. Back in June of 2015, the unthinkable happened. Oliver was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer. Something that we all dread hearing, and something that we've all actually maybe dealt with a family member, but we never think it could be me. He was also told during this time that he would no longer be able to fly. He would have to go through chemotherapy as part of his treatment. So not only did he have to fight for his life, he also had to fight for his career. Going through chemotherapy can be incredibly isolating, hard for us who've never done it to understand it. So this was a tough time in his life. Ironically, during this same time, one of his wingmen, Captain Bartomeo, was also diagnosed with cancer from his squadron. And they got to go through their chemotherapy sessions together. Of course, both of them were accustomed to having a wingman. It's part of the culture. It's obviously part of the flying culture, but it's also part of our Air Force culture. And they got through it. They got through it together. The good news is, in April of earlier this year, Oliver was declared cancer-free. He's flying again. Guess who his first flight was with? Captain Bartomeo. Yeah. There's a lot of airmen across our force. They may not go through cancer, but they go through something, just like Oliver and his wingmen. I'm extremely proud of him and the grit that he showed, the resilience that he displayed. I think I'm more proud of our wingman culture that helped him get through it. This is Ken Cook. Ken Cook is assigned to the 6th Air Refueling Squadron. At MacDill. Now, Ken happens to be an Orlando native. And I thought when I was young, I was a menace to society. But according to Ken, he was literally a menace to society. So he was arrested several times when he was a child, the first at the age of 13, and then again when he was 16. He was certain that he wouldn't live past the age of 21. Now, Ken is a boom operator, so when he was arrested at the age of 16, he happened to meet one of the prison guards. And it was a juvenile detention center, but nonetheless, he met a prison guard who told him, hey, if you want to get your life turned around, do what I did and join the military. So he did, and he joined the United States Air Force. Ken has done a total and complete 360. And went on to have a very successful career. He's understood the importance of mentorship. He's understood the importance of friendship. And again, I point back to the connectivity in our wingman culture. And he will tell you he could not have done it without his Air Force family. How many more airmen are in our formations like Ken that need that mentorship and guidance? This is Staff Sergeant Nicole Pesca. Nicole is an aeromedical technician with the 433rd Aeromedical Evacuation Squadron at Lackland. Now, she typically trains and she typically spends her time in the various AORs saving people, saving lives, and doing what our AES squadrons and aeromedical technicians and CCAT teams and all the folks that she typically flies with, doing what they do best. But recently, she found herself in Houston, Texas. Why do you think she was in Houston? Yeah, Hurricane Harvey. She joined up with some of her other teammates from across Air Mobility Command, along with, I believe the aircraft came from Little Rock. Free coffee for everyone on General Everhart, right? But she was critical to the success of getting food, supplies to the hurricane victims in Houston. So it doesn't matter if it's in Africa, if it's in Afghanistan, if it's in Iraq, or if it's in Houston. We have airmen like this serving all over the place, and I'm proud to be a teammate of Nicole's. And then finally, there's David. So Dave is a crew chief with the 821st CRS. There we go. Now, you might wonder what's the crew chief doing out in the middle of this field, and this is actually in Puerto Rico. Having a damn good time, it looks like. So Dave was down helping out with the effort, and he happened to hop a ride up into this mountainous area that was pretty hard to get to on a Marine MV-22, the Osprey, to help deliver some supplies and water. And he said he could not count the number of hugs and kisses and even ladies that greeted him and was so happy to see him, and how proud he felt to be able to contribute to this mission. Not doing his standard job as a crew chief, but being an airman and doing what we do as airmen. Again, if you had no other business, if ATA had no other business for the next few days, I could stand on this stage and tell you about airman after airman after airman after airman. But I think you get the point. We have some incredible airmen, not only in this command, but we have some incredible airmen all across this force. My question to you is, how do we keep them? Not just how do we retain them, but how do we keep them motivated? How do we keep them encouraged? How do we keep them inspired? Because that's how they come to us. You know, General Goldfein and I, we get to go down to Lackland, and we get to go to, I was just at Keechler just two days ago. That's how they come to us. They come to us motivated, encouraged, inspired, agile, innovative, ready to roll. They come to us feeling this sense of connection. They come to us feeling this sense of purpose. But somewhere along the way, something happens. Now, I have some ideas about why some of these things happen, why they get less motivated, less inspired, less encouraged, less connected. Some of it has to do with nature. Some of it has to do with the nature of our business. Some of it has to do with our extremely high ops tempo, which I don't foresee decreasing anytime soon. Some of it has to do with some of the things that the boss talked about that we as an Air Force have to get after. Some of the additional things, additional duties, computer-based training, moving things out of your way, which we are doing a lot of work in that arena. Most of it has to do with you, though. Most of it has to do with the level of leadership and encouragement you provide. Most of it has to do with those four things that he talked about: mission, culture, family, and fun. Most of it has to do with the environment that you create as leaders in our Air Force. That's how we get them to stay. That's how we keep them motivated. That's how we keep them inspired. That's how we keep them resilient. That's how we utilize and keep them thinking and being innovative and coming up with new and better ideas for how we execute training. So I want to re-emphasize the importance of what he talked about. Culture. In your squadrons, in your squadron-like organizations. You set the tone. You set the pace. You create the culture that allows not only these 4 airmen, but these 12 and the other 6 or 8 that came across this stage to stay motivated, to stay encouraged, and to stay inspired. Again, we get to see this firsthand, from Deppers on FedEx Field all the way through our tech training airmen. Let me transition a little bit, and I really love our team, right? So I love that we have a CMSAF that's kind of like, and I'll relate this, it's football season. Right now, my mind is here, but deep down, I'm always thinking about my fantasy football team and, whose butt I can kick and all that. But I relate our team to, a football franchise. And we have a great general manager in our CMSAF who sets the tone and the vision. We have a great coach and our chief who, gives us the guidance and the daily ops. And then I like to think of myself as maybe the quarterback or a linebacker. And I have a lot of chiefs out here that are playing offensive line and all these other positions that's doing the basic blocking and tackling for us. So we get after some of the things that we think will allow you to be more efficient, to be more effective. the entire goal, here's the goal. The more of these things we can take care of for you, the more time you can spend on training, the more time you can spend on taking care of each other, the more time you can spend on mission, on family, on culture, on fun, the more time you will have to maintain that balance. So let me just run through real quick some of the things that we're working on. One of the things that I've really started thinking more and more about is how do we enhance the wingman culture? I don't believe that we've lost it, so I won't go so far as to say that we no longer have a wingman culture. But I think we've kind of slipped into this idea that we celebrate the importance of having wingmen once a quarter during Wingman Day. How do we inculcate this culture of every day is Wingman Day? You don't even have to use the word wingman, because that's one thing I noticed about our force, right? Our force is very delicate sometimes. You know, I see that football commercial with Von Miller, and the coach finds this soap in his locker room, and he says, "Coach, I'm delicate." Right? That's how our force is sometimes. If you start using the word resiliency too much, then we're like, here we go, resiliency again. If you use wingman too much, then people just automatically kind of turn it off. I remember this happened with mentorship. You start using the word mentorship, people, and because we're so delicate when it comes to words. I don't care if you use the word or not. What I care about is that we do things like we discussed earlier. That we make time. Because here's what I hear from the force. Yeah, Chief, I want to make sure that my airmen are taken care of, but man, we're just so busy. We got so much mission. We got so many things going on, and we got all this other stuff these other requirements. Another football analogy, Coach Tony Dungy says when he took over the team in Tampa Bay, his philosophy was no excuses, no explanations. Now, we will continue to help you with this stuff, but you can't make an excuse for not creating the right culture, the right wingman culture in your organizations. Walk away from here today believing that every day is Wingman Day. I've said it from the beginning. I wish I could say a lot has changed, but a lot has not changed in my mind about how we get after suicides. I will say we have a lot of great people working on this problem for us. And we have some kind of big brain academia. We have some stuff that we think that how we'll use big data. But I think we need to really get back to some basic blocking and tackling when it comes to how we deal with suicides. One of the first things I think we've come to the realization is because we sit in the Pentagon on occasion, we find ourselves in the Pentagon, and we get an op rep for every suicide and every good thing and every bad thing that happens in the Air Force. So to us, there's this picture, there's this kind of, hey, I think this is a problem. But probably to most of you, every now and then you might see an ideation, an attempt, or a completed one. So I don't know that our force sees this problem the same way that we see it. And so one of the things that we like to do is to make sure you see exactly what we see. I've also kind of come to the realization that as we peel some of these back, many times, you know who the key player is? So we provide suicide awareness training to everybody in our formations except who do you think? Families. Families. That's probably a huge gap. Because while some of you work really hard and deploy a lot and spend more time with your teammates than your family, the majority of us in our United States Air Force spend more time with our families and are closer to our families. Now, I'm not quite sure what the right answer is, right? I would never want to force a spouse to say, hey, you got to come in and do suicide awareness training. But somehow we need to connect the two. Because we say, and we've said for years, every airman is a what? Sensor. So is every spouse and every kid and every brother and every parent. And so we got to figure out a way to get them into the equation. And so we'll keep getting after this. But this is something I'm pretty serious about, pretty adamant about. This is something that literally keeps me up at night. So I want to continue to help us as an Air Force combat suicide. Closely related, financial readiness. You know, it wouldn't bother me if, because we talk around this, and we've most recently been talking about the importance of financial readiness and financial stability because of the upcoming blended retirement system, the BRS. I think this is something we should talk about more consistently. I think if you think about our CAF pillars, this is probably as equally important as any of the rest: mental, physical, social, spiritual. And our first sergeants and chiefs and our commanders out here can tell you this is one of the areas that leads to a lot of the challenges that we have with our airmen is financial issues. So we have quite a few initiatives, not only to get us prepared for BRS, but for other financial challenges that our airmen have. And we'll utilize some in-house resources, and we'll utilize some resources of some of the partners industry partners that we work with on a regular basis. So I don't think, I was in the Pentagon yesterday, and prior to that, it was probably a month or so before I was in the building. I won't get back into the building until about right before Thanksgiving. But whenever I do, guess what the first thing I need to do? What? Yeah, I got to do? Somebody has to do a travel voucher. The first thing I have to do is find a brand new second lieutenant. Sir or ma'am, would you do the honor of re-enlisting me? Don't clap. I've been in the Air Force 28 years, almost 29. And every 4 years, I got to go through yep, I'm still here, re-enlist, thank you. Yes, sir. That. Now, time-honored tradition, I love it. But I think we like to get to, once you hit your 15-year mark, then you're in an indefinite enlistment. You're good until your higher tenure. And if you have a selective re-enlistment bonus or something, we'll make sure you have the right active duty service commitment. And then if you get promoted again, you'll go to be good until your next higher tenure. I believe at 15 years, most of us are plugged in and dedicated and ready to roll. Because, and I don't know if we have any personnelists in here, I was shocked. Because all I do is sign the paperwork, right? I never knew what happened to it after I signed it and went about my business. We still have to scan it and either send it in through email in a PDF file to AFPC, or in some cases, when there's a lot of them, especially coming from overseas, we have to put it in a brown envelope and mail it, and sometimes it gets lost in the mail and all this other stuff. So 60s. All right, I think in the Army, after 10 years, you're on an indefinite enlistment. So 15 years, I think we'll get there. Still doing the research. Again, we like to go slow to go fast to make sure we understand all of the benefits. So we're really close to our goal of reducing the number of lines on our 1206s for the annual awards program. So right now, 27 lines. Most of us don't do 27 amazing things worth writing down in a year, so we'll get that down to about 16. I like 12 and 4, so 12 in job performance, and then 4 lines for whole airman concept. That gets us to about 80% of what you're being evaluated on is your job and your primary mission, and then 20% the other things that we ask you to do as airmen. And then hopefully our functionals will follow by reducing the lines on their functional awards and reducing some of the overall awards and some of the burdens that come with, particularly at the end of the year. We've also considered and are thinking about moving our 12 Outstanding Airmen of the Year awards to the fiscal year. So essentially that pushes most of the work. So we have a little bit less work, less lines. It pushes most of the work into the summertime, which is, there's no good time to do all of this stuff, right? It's going to always conflict with something, but that's actually a better time, according to most of you. So we'll continue to get after that. Air Force Cool. So we've been working with our folks who manage our Air Force Cool program, and the things that I'd like to really get after is, and this is feedback that I got from the field, with respect to our enlisted aviators, our enlisted RPA pilots, if we could allow them, and I don't think Air Force Cool, the certification program, will allow them to get a full private pilot's license before they go into that training, but I think it could get them most of the way. I'm also asking them to expand the Air Force Cool program. You know, right now, it's only limited to a certification that's closely tied to your AFSC. And so if you're a civil engineer, you can't go and get a certification in cyber defense or whatever it is, even if that's your desire, even if you're getting ready to separate, and that's something that you want to do. So we'd like to see them open it up just a little bit. You know, we've developed some initiatives. We're always evolving our developmental special duty process, thanks to the help of some of our career field managers, AFPC, and some of our teammates in the Pentagon. So we'll keep working, making DSD a better, more smoother process for all of you who like to execute it. Still a lot of working groups and work to be done with respect to our EPME programs and processes. I feel good about where we are with that. I like to do an enlisted evaluation system review, and you can put the two, the EES and the ACA, our Airman Comprehensive Assessment. You know, those will kind of go together. They're actually part of the same enlisted evaluation system. You have performance feedback and then performance reporting. I generally like the changes that we've made over the last few years. Just some changes we need to make on the periphery. What I'd really like to see is, I don't think we have the right level of connectivity. And what I mean by that is, you know, we have these institutional competencies that we require of every rank in the Air Force, enlisted and officer. So there are certain things that we ask every enlisted member to be able to do, right? Sometimes it's centered around building relationships, problem solving, things of that nature. Not your technical things that come in your JQSs and your training manuals, but these are the professional competencies that we look for in every rank. Well, I like to take those things and then align them with the performance feedback. Here's what we expect from you. Here are the same things that we'll give you feedback on, and then those same 7 to 10, however many competencies, put them on the EPR. So now you have that connectivity. Here's what we expect. Here's how we provide you feedback, and here's what you'll be evaluated on. So we'll take a look at that, I believe, in January. So you've heard about the A1C and below EPRs, just about there with that. Again, if we're not going to use them, I don't see why we should write them, and just imagine the time that we'll give back to many of you, and certainly to many of our folks in the training environment. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then our first sergeant special duty manager, Chief Pinheiro, is working on an electronic family care plan for us. So a lot of discussions about family care plan. I kind of think this is something that probably should just be kind of in with VRED. Not necessarily sure if that's the right thing. I also think we need to have a tiered approach. I think if you're a two-star general who happens to be married to another military member, I feel pretty confident that you have a plan for if you happen to have young kids, some do. Or if you're a senior master sergeant married to a master sergeant, I feel pretty confident that we can get by. You can get by without having a family care plan. So, we'll kick that around and see. I'm just not certain that every single mill-to-mill couple and single parent needs to have this written thing. I'm not even sure of the level of confidence that we have as an Air Force and that you have as commanders, that if you actually needed it, that the numbers are correct, that the people actually exist, that the signatures are accurate and all this other stuff. So we'll continue working on that and make it, again, the smoothest process. These are some of those singles that we talk about to clear things off your plate. Hey, let me talk about, so all of that stuff is on us. That stuff is on me and the boss and the rest of the team to try to continue clearing these things and making life easier for you. Along with creating the right culture in your organizations, let me just talk to you about one thing that I believe is important. Again, we all have leadership philosophies and espouse leadership philosophies, and I believe you'll hear enough of that today. But here's one thing I would ask you to focus on. Be committed. Be committed to our airmen. Be committed to our Air Force. Be committed to being great leaders. Be committed to being great wingmen. And I don't have to go through and explain to you what commitment means, not this crowd. I think you full well understand that. But I will tell you that just like all of us, you may have to do this every year. You may have to do this every time you re-enlist. You may have to do this every morning when you wake up and your feet hit the floor. And that's reach deep down inside and recommit yourself to this Air Force and to these airmen, whether it's every day, every quarter, every enlistment, because they need it and they deserve it. Because they want to be committed to you. And so of all the things that I could ask you to do, and there's a lot of work to be done across our Air Force, and I think you all know that. The one thing I would ask you is decide, like I always say, and I think and I hope you've heard me say this before, very binary choice. You're either in or you're out. You can't be on the fence. Because airmen know it, and they see it. At the end of the day, attitude truly reflects leadership. Let me end again by saying thank you. Thank you not only for what you do with regard to the mobility air forces, and airlift, refueling, and aeromedical evacuation, contingency response. Thank you for what you do for our nation. Thank you for what you do for the American people. Thank you for breeding so many fantastic, innovative, agile airmen. Thank you for always making me feel connected to this community. Great philosopher and leader of the Roman army, Marcus Aurelius, once said, don't waste your time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Don't waste your time arguing about what a good airman should be. Be one. Thank you.